Greetings and welcome to Tryhard Mode. I'm Mark, and in this video we'll show you how we integrated our combat system into our main scene with enemies, ragdolls and explosive barrels, as well as new UI tools for visual feedback and a new pickup system for our cassettes and recorder mechanics. All of this coming up next. Thank you for joining us in this, the third episode of our Detectives game devlog. Let's review the progress for the last few days, in which, while we didn't spend a lot of time in creating new flashy mechanics, like in comparison to the previous devlogs, we've been working on incorporating and putting together the mechanics in which Ellie and I had been working on separately, introducing them to the main scene, making sure they work properly, and we've also been working on creating the visual feedback the game needs in order to make all the mechanics more player friendly and intuitive. For example, we now have this cursor. We created a new cursor that allows us to aim in the direction we want to hit or shoot even when we're not in combat, and that changes color. It will stay yellow while out of combat, and will turn red once we start shooting at the enemies, to make the gameplay clearer to the player. We also included in our scene a pickup system for our cassettes and the mechanics of our recorder, so that now we can start the game without any cassettes in our inventory, and we can press tab or the buttons of the recorder and nothing will happen, since we do not have any cassettes equipped. But the moment we make contact with any of these cassettes, regardless of the order, which by the way can be scattered through our city, or they can be dropped by enemies, or perhaps by a boss, the moment we pick up any of these, regardless of the order, and press tab, this cassette will already appear in our recorder and will also show a unique UI with a specific color for each type of action that we can perform with our character. So in this scene, it will be very clear which of these cassettes we are collecting, which in this case was the yellow one. It will also be very clear which cassette we have inside our recorder, and also in our text line, that will be the one that triggers our actions. Now that we have a cassette equipped, we can press play, in this case with our spacebar, to start the recording and get the text moving along. And we've already have an indicator of where this keyword needs to hit, so that the corresponding action gets triggered. And now, the moment we press play, as our text starts moving and the keywords makes contact with this point, we can see the particles that we had mentioned we wanted to add. And in addition to the particles, we also added a shake or eye twin bounce to the cassette UI to make the shooting of our actions as clear as possible. Of course, we still have to create a proper tutorial to explain the mechanics of the game, but with the game being so dependent of these mechanics, it is very important that the player can follow up the process, the cassettes, texts and actions as clearly as possible. Our cassettes still work in the same way, but we'll already have these visual indications. And now, if we pick up any of the other cassettes and press tab, we can cycle between the ones we have in our inventory. Same as before, every text is independent and its location gets stored, so we can be combining actions like hitting and then switching to jump if we want to dodge something. We still need to calibrate some things and make small adjustments, But in general, the basic mechanics of the game already work properly, and we're really excited to have them all in the scene. Right now we only have 2 cassettes, but we can also collect the green running one, which gives us a small speed buff to escape enemies, move faster through the city, and dodge various obstacles and threats such as cars. Speaking of running, Ellie also included a way to detect whether or not we're in collision with a wall. So compared to how it worked previously, our character no longer keeps running when bumping against walls. It now stops the animation to make it a little more natural. Since before he kept running, even if he was smearing his face against the buildings. So now it looks a little more realistic. Now, with all our cassettes and our basic mechanics working together, Ellie also included the ragdoll scripts and explosive barrels in our main scene. We can now shoot these barrels with a shooting cassette, blow them up, and this way we can both take damage and deal damage to our enemies within the blast area. And the ragdoll states get activated when we suffer this kind of major collision. This also works with cars, so if we're not careful, we can get run over when crossing the roads, and the moment the collision takes place, our script will activate the ragdoll of the character to make the interaction with the scene a little more fun. At the same time, we also include this ragdoll system to our enemies, so that we can start putting together encounters in different areas of the city. Enemies already start fighting and chasing us, but we can use these cars as an additional tools or alternatives to get rid of them. They also take damage in the same way as us and also use ragdoll mechanics. I think here, well, we can ignore that. I think I died on top of the enemy's head. As you can see, there's still a few adjustments needed, but the important thing is that we already have the opportunity to test the combat system in our city, and part of the cool reasons to introduce ragdolls is to get these predictable results and making the gameplay more fun. Already with these mechanics, in the scene we can see that the combat is maybe a little slow, at least on our part, because the enemies respond fast enough, or maybe even too fast. So to compensate this, we're thinking on introducing different firearms. Here we can see a car hit both enemies. I think there are no more enemies left in the scene. Oh no, there's still one left in the shadows. But I was saying about needing to find how to make the game more dynamic, responsive and fun, so that it doesn't feel so sluggish. We thought about introducing different firearms. The gun might work well as an initial weapon, but it will be interesting to introduce machine guns or shotguns, perhaps grenades, to offer more variations to combat dynamics. But this is what we're going to be working on for the next devlog. Ellie is going to be working on incorporating more variety of enemies. Here we can see how our character died. That transition screen will be missing to be able to restart the game. I'll be working on that too. We'd like to start working on creating mini bosses, or maybe one of the main bosses. And also I'm going to start working on developing the story and the progression of the game through the scene. Just as always, we'll be including the tutorials that we follow in the description of the video. We thank you very much for staying with us until the end of the devlog. If you like our content and are interested in continuing to following the development of our projects, we invite you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Maybe even leave a suggestion or comment, that is greatly appreciated. And for our part, just to wish you as always to have an excellent week and a lot of success in your projects. See you soon.